John Lee Real Estate, find you the best rate. All throughout Philly like Schuylkill Expressway. Talking to people who out of...
Let me ask you a question. If somebody looked at your calendar, your phone, and where your best energy goes every week, would they be able to tell you what matters most to you, or would they hear one answer from your mouth and see a completely different answer from your life? That question has been hitting me pretty hard lately because I've always said that my family is one of the most important parts of my life. I've said that I work hard for them. I have said that everything I am building is supposed to create more freedom for us. But I had to be honest with myself. There were times where my actions were telling a different story. Work was not creating freedom. Work was competing with my family, and I was using my family as a reason I kept choosing work. Today, I want to talk about a book that puts a very simple question in front of all of us. The One Thing by Gary Keller. It is usually described as a productivity book, but the lesson I took from it goes much deeper than getting more work done. For me, it is about making sure what I say matters actually matches the way I live. The main idea of the book is simple. Not everything matters equally. We can have 20 things on a to-do list, stay busy from morning until night, and still avoid one thing that would actually move our life forward. The book calls this going small. That does not mean thinking small or living a small life. It means cutting through everything you could do so you can identify what you should do. It means finding the action that deserves more of your attention because it creates a bigger result than everything else on the list. Gary Keller gave us what they call the focusing question. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? I love that question because it does not ask what I could do, it asks what can I do. It forces an action, then it asks whether that action creates leverage. Will doing this make the next decision easier? Will it remove work that never needed to be done? Will it create momentum? The book uses the image of dominoes. When you knock over the right first domino, it can knock over a larger one, which can knock over an even larger one. This is how real progress usually happens. Success is sequential, not simultaneous. You do the right thing, then the right thing becomes cleaner. Then the right next thing becomes clearer. Most of us do the opposite. We try to knock over every domino at once. We answer emails while checking social media. We work on a new idea while we still have 3 unfinished ideas. And we confuse being needed with being effective. At the end of the day, we are tired, but the important thing is still sitting there untouched. I know that cycle well. I'm a realtor, an investor, and a business owner. I own more than 20 rental units. I work on flips. I help clients. I network. I create content. I host this podcast. I'm also a husband and a father. I can always find something productive to do. That is exactly what made the problem difficult to see. The issue was never that I was lazy. The issue was that I could stay busy doing real work and still be avoiding the most important work. I could tell myself I was providing, I could point to responsibilities, deals, and opportunities. All of it sounded reasonable. But at some point, working for my family became the excuse I used for not being present with my family. I was telling myself and telling them I was doing it all this for them, while my actions were showing my work could have my attention wherever it wanted. That was difficult for me to admit because it reminded me of my own childhood. I love my mother and father, and I believe they love me also. I also remember what it felt like when they were absent. I remember hearing some of the same explanations about working and providing for the family. Then I realized I was starting to repeat the same pattern and use the same excuses. I was saying that I wanted to be a family person, but my repeated actions were not always proving it. I do not say that to condemn my parents. I say it because patterns have a way of repeating themselves until somebody becomes honest enough to interrupt them. I started thinking about Jordan and the kind of father I want him to remember. I don't want him to see my dad worked harder for us. I want him to know that his dad was there. I want him to remember that I listened and noticed him, and that when I was with him, he didn't have to compete with my phone or the next deal. I also had to get help from a professional and stop believing that guilt was going to fix me. Guilt can expose a problem, but living in guilt does not create a healthy marriage or make you a present father. I'm a believer in Christ, and my faith helped me understand redemption in a much healthier way. I don't have to pretend I am perfect. I can receive grace, tell the truth about where I have fallen short, and choose a different direction. The faith has been a solid point for me, but the practical lesson applies to anyone. Beating yourself up is not the same thing as changing. The goal is not to hate who you have been, The goal is to bring your actions into alignment with the person you say you want to become. The one thing also changed how I think about help. For a long time, I looked at certain tasks and thought, I can do that myself, and technically I could, but that was the wrong question. The better question was, is this important use of my time, and am I the only person who can do it? One of the biggest dominoes in my business was hiring a virtual assistant. That helped me see the value of getting back in work off of my plate. Eventually that grew into bringing Laura into a much larger role as my personal assistant and team leader. She now handles a lot of the work behind the scenes that used to live in my head and consume much of my attention. I have also started thinking more creatively about buying back time at home. Even something as simple as hiring cleaners can create time and energy that my wife and I use more intentionally. I used to look at those things mainly as expenses. Now I also look at what money is purchasing. Sometimes it is purchasing time, presence, and a little more margin of our life. There is an important warning here. Buying back time only matters if you're intentional about what happens to that time. 5 hours of work and immediately fill those 5 hours with more work. I didn't buy back my life. I only created a larger workday. The purpose is to protect the roles that nobody else can fill. Somebody else can help with paperwork. Somebody else can clean the house. Somebody else can build a system or update a spreadsheet. Nobody else can be Jennifer's husband. Nobody else can be Jordan's father. Those responsibilities cannot be delegated, and they should not be left with whatever energy remains. The same idea applies inside real estate. There are hundreds of things that an agent can do in a day, but only a few activities create business. Building relationships, having real conversations, following up, negotiating well, and taking care of clients deserve a different level of attention than busy work that can be automated or delegated. One thing I want to make clear is that having a one thing does not mean you only care about one area of your life. It means that inside each role and in each moment, you know what deserves your full attention. In business, my one thing might be a lead generation block, a conversation with an important client, or finding the right person to take something off of my plate. In my marriage, it may be having an honest conversation and listening without checking my phone. As a father, it may be getting on the floor with Jordan and being completely there in my faith. It may be slowing down enough to pray and remember who I'm trying to become. Balance does not mean giving every part of equal attention every hour. It means knowing what season you are in, knowing what is in front of you, and not allowing everything else to steal that moment. When I am working, I want to do the work that matters. When I'm with my family, I want to actually be with my family. That sounds simple, but in a world where our phones allow every role to interrupt every other role, being fully present has become a real and honest discipline. Here's a simple exercise you can do after this episode. First, name the main thing in plain language. What do you say matters most right now? Maybe it is rebuilding your marriage, becoming financially stable, or being more present with your children. Second, look at evidence. Where did your best hours go during the last 7 days? What received your attention? What did your calendar protect? What got the first version of you? And what only received whatever was left? Do not use those answers to shame yourself. Use them as honest information. Third, ask the focusing question, what is the one thing I can do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? If family is priority, maybe it is setting a real stopping time for work. If your marriage needs attention, maybe it is protecting one free evening every week. If the business is consuming you, maybe it is finally hiring the person you've been trying to avoid paying. Fourth, remove the competition. Put the phone away, block time, delegate the task. Say no to something good so you can protect something more important. Your priorities do not become real because you announce them. They become real when they cost you something and you still protect them. The biggest lesson I took from the one thing is not I need to become more productive. It is that I need to become more honest. I need to stop saying something is important while repeatedly giving my best attention to something else. So here is my challenge to you and for myself. Decide what your one thing is in this season, then look at your actions and ask whether they agree with your answer. And if they don't, do not hide behind guilt and don't create another complicated plan. Choose the right action and protect it. Make sure what you say matches what you do. Whatever the one thing is, give it the focus it deserves. Make the main thing the main thing. Thank you for listening. If this episode made you think of someone who has been pulled in too many different directions and you want to send it to them, please do. And before you move on to the next thing today, take 1 minute and decide what is your one thing right now.
John Lee Real Estate, find you the best rates. All throughout Philly like Schuylkill Expressway. Talking to people who out of